Hi, everyone, and welcome to Wholesale Change, the webcast and podcast from Distribution Strategy Group, where we bring thought leadership to wholesale change agents like you. Because if you're on this show, you probably are a wholesale change agent. My name's Ian Heller, and I'll be your host today, and your only host, because my business partner, Jonathan Bine, is on a very well-deserved vacation. So, Jonathan, hope you're having fun and not listening to this show. Before I introduce our guests, and we're very fortunate to have him today, first, we got to do a little business. I want to tell you about Customer Experience RX, which is a new product from us, Distribution Strategy Group. And it's a fantastic, brilliant product. And I can say that because Jonathan invented it and I didn't. Smart distributors know that increasing customer loyalty leads to growth in both revenue and profitability. Furthermore, increasing loyalty depends on being able to measure customer satisfaction and improve customer experience. Our Customer Experience RX provides a new and exciting way to measure overall customer satisfaction, but more importantly, to understand the drivers of customer satisfaction and customer experience. If you are using Net Promoter Score, or even if you're not, if you're just looking for a way to systematically improve customer satisfaction and customer experience, reach out to us at Distribution Strategy Group. You can talk to Jonathan at jbine, J-B-E-I-N, at distributionstrategy.com. This is one of the dashboards from the product, and it is a fantastic way to keep in touch with what's making your customers happy and what's not. Today's episode is also brought to you by ECI Evolution X. Do you know what 94% of B2B buyers do before they make a purchase? See if you can figure out the answer in the next 60 seconds. ECI's ES Tech Group offers a B2B commerce solution, Evolution X, built specifically for distributors and manufacturers. They have over 500 customers in Europe and North America, with nearly 50 of those customers supercharging their stores with ORS Nasco, the CEO of which is on today's show. They operate across multiple industry verticals, including industrial, electrical, plumbing, HVAC, gas and welding, medical, and business supplies. Evolution X is a B2B e-commerce platform created to make your job easier while also creating the very best online B2B customer experience. It does this through its 4 C's: commerce, content, connectivity, and communication. Let's take them one at a time. Commerce, best-in-class, massively scalable platform with rich and intuitive B2B functionality that you and your customers need. Content, access to millions of SKUs of rich product content across the industries they serve. Connectivity, deep real-time integration with your ERP and other applications. And communication, their in-house custom website design and marketing team enable you to create personalized online B2B experiences that drive loyalty and increase engagement with your customers. If you have a website that doesn't sell, or if you aren't sure where to start, begin by going to evolutionx.io/DSG. That's evolutionx.io/DSG. There you can download their free e-commerce wheel of growth, a step-by-step guide to keeping pace with giants like Amazon and Grainger. Did you figure out what 94% of B2B buyers do before they make a purchase? They research online. Don't miss your chance to impress them. Visit evolutionx.io/DSG. Our third and final sponsor today is SAP. SAP supports your transformation in the wholesale distribution industry. Wholesale distributors are under intense pressure to adapt to a fast-changing industry. They're turning to new technologies to transform, protect profit margins, and remain competitive. As B2B e-commerce and marketplaces intensify competition, top distributors are responding by acting as trusted partners to their customers, collaborating closely with them and wider networks to deliver all the products and services needed for every phase of a project. B2B customers are demanding a modern, personalized e-commerce experience that includes a wider range of products and services, and complex distribution businesses need more than supply chain visibility. They need flexibility too. New AI-powered tools are being used to quickly mitigate risk and disruption and even keep sustainability goals, SAP, on track. Let me talk about 2 featured wholesale distribution solutions from SAP. SAP S/4HANA Cloud is a public edition ERP that is ready to run, that delivers the latest industry best practices and continuous innovation. SAP Commerce Cloud helps you engage and transact with your customers anywhere, at any time, on any device, with built-in omni-channel versatility. Go to www.sap.com/industries/wholesale-distribution.html Differentiate yourself with new services and deliver anything, anywhere, at any time with SAP's wholesale distribution software. Thanks so much to SAP Evolution X for your support of this show, because without you, this content would not be possible. Now I want to bring in our guest. I'm so excited to have a conversation with Kevin Short. Kevin is the president and CEO of ORS Nasco. And I've got a little bio up here about Kevin. Kevin, welcome to the show. How are you today, my friend?
Ian, great to be here with you. Thank you so much for inviting me on, and specifically, thanks for all that you do to educate and promote distribution. You're doing a lot of important work.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, you know, it's funny. Before the show started, we were talking about how people don't know about this industry, which is really strange considering the size of it, don't you think?
I do. We continue to be sort of the American economy's best kept secret, but more and more people, I think, are starting to figure it out.
Yeah, no, I agree. And you've got, quite an interesting career here. So, talking about getting into distribution, why don't you share your story, Kevin? Well, first of all, where did you grow up? How did you get involved in distribution? And where did you get to where you are today? Give us the full tour.
Sure. Originally from Louisiana, so major LSU Tiger and New Orleans Saints fans. But my dad's career took us up to New England, and I did most of my growing up in Connecticut. However, as I was going to school, I guess I was halfway through university, and I started to say to myself, like, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? My dad gave me a really fantastic piece of career advice, which was, as a lifelong chemical manufacturer, he said, son, I call on these things called distributors, and all they do is make money and have fun. And he told this to my 19-year-old self. So of course I was hooked, right? Absolutely sold. What he was really trying to say is that distributors have a freedom to perform unencumbered by a lot of what I would call the uncontrollables. As a global manufacturer, my dad had to deal with GDP and economic conditions and tariffs and trade and a lot of other things that he, as a business executive, really had no ability to impact. He just had to react to. Whereas the fragmented nature of distribution, really good distributors of all types find a way to grow and be successful no matter what. Right. So there is some protection, there's some security, and there's some confidence that I think can be built for people in distribution, because under any circumstances, if you're doing the right things the right way, you can find yourself in a position to grow. And so that was great advice that he gave me. And so I started off that journey looking at only distribution companies. And for my first 9 years, I was blessed that a chemical distribution company took a chance on a snot-nosed kid coming out of school, and I learned unbelievable things in that industry, starting out looking after a warehouse in order to understand the business from the inside out. Their wisdom, which I didn't necessarily understand as a recent college graduate, was that as you move into commercial roles, it's super important that you make promises that your customers can take to the bank. And so they taught me about the supply chain and how long and how much complication actually exists getting things from point A to point B. So a couple years later, when I was given my first opportunity to connect with our customers, I was able, I hope, to talk about realistic expectations, set them and meet them in order to be successful commercially. But it was a great experience. Still have a lot of friends in that industry, and it was everything from the stuff on the back of your shampoo bottle to food ingredients to stuff that can kill you. So it was fascinating in terms of the kinds of products that we got involved with there. But as industries change and M&A comes in, my mentor, who is in that industry, found his way to plastics distribution and dragged me along with him. So my next, call it 17 or 18 years, was in plastics distribution, things like plexiglass and Lexan and materials like that, with a national in fact, international footprint across a couple of different brands. Another fantastic industry, cool products, amazing relationships and customers. And I had a terrific almost 2-decade run in that industry. But then in late 2019, my shoulder got tapped yet again, and the owners of ORS Nasco and Medco Tool, large wholesaler, I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about what we do, asked me to come on over and provide some leadership for our business. And it was just an opportunity I couldn't pass up. As a lifelong distributor, being able to call distributors my customers, my partners, having walked a couple of miles in their shoes and learned not one but two industries that I had no previous experience in, was an intellectual challenge and a growth opportunity that I just couldn't turn down. So that I started with the business in January 1st of 2020, about 10 weeks before the world turned upside down. But it's been an absolutely incredible and fascinating almost 3.5 years at this point.
Yeah, I started in warehouse too. I was a truck unloader at a Granger branch in college. And I'm not saying it's the only way in, because people have successful careers in distribution, starting in all kinds of places. But it was very helpful for me too. I mean, you really understand how the operations work. And then when you get into roles where you're responsible for generating demand, I just think you're more thoughtful about what you do.
I didn't understand the wisdom at the time of what they were doing to prepare me for later on in life, but I sure am grateful for it now. And then as you find your way to different sort of executive roles, understanding a little bit about all the aspects of the business hopefully allows you to have some empathy and understanding for what folks in your organization are doing and facing. And therefore you have an appreciation for all the hard work that they bring to the table.
Yeah, you bet. Now, we do take questions on this show, so feel free to use the Q&A button to send in questions for Kevin. But Kevin, let's pivot to ORS Nasco, or we'll call it ORS for short from now on.
Great. Yep.
Why don't you tell us about the business? I know it's been around a long time. It's really cool to take over the leadership of such a great, established, well-known company. Tell us a little bit about the company and what it does. Give us some indication of its scale, et cetera.
Sure. ORS is Oklahoma Rig Supply. The DNA or genesis of our business was really out of Oklahoma, supplying the oil field. And then decades later, you now find us really serving all of the U.S., all of Canada, and a big chunk of the Middle East in terms of our reach. So 3 distinct regions we are able to serve. You're talking about several 100,000 SKUs. I think we're up to something like 425,000 at this point, which is a blessing and a curse. We have just about everything that our customers might need, but boy, is it a lot to manage. Right. We are fortunate to have about 1,150 associates working in our organization that do just outstanding work as we try to delight our customers every single day. And one of the reasons, of course, we exist is to provide some convenience for both the manufacturing community and the distribution community. So with 24 locations, all fully stocked, we are really in a next day, 2-day business to spoon feed distributors exactly what they need and exactly when they need it.
Yeah, but you do a wide variety of things for distributors, right? I mean, it's not just fulfilling products they order, but it's also helping them generate demand for those products, right?
We do. Whether it's training, education, whether it's other B2B services, whether it's providing support with technology, we don't want to think about ourselves as just a product company, but really as a distributor enabler to do the things that they want to do. It's probably worth mentioning our philosophy, and you'll probably hear me say it a few times during our chat, is we are super committed to the concept of pure wholesale. What that means to me is 100% of our revenue goes to distributors in order for them to serve the end use market. So we are always aligned with our customers. We are never in a position to compete against them. And so from that standpoint, we do become that trusted advisor for the distributor, and many of them lean on us to do some things that have nothing to do with products, but help them accelerate and grow their business.
Can you give us some examples?
Everything from pricing to recruiting, to category management, to managing some of their technology and customer facing activities. Really, you could say, Ian, anything that we do from a departmental or functionality standpoint to operate our business, we very gladly make that expertise available to our customers if in some small way it helps them be better, smarter, faster.
Yeah, so it's quite a broad value proposition. So you're helping to generate demand, you're backing them up with products. And so I would imagine that these distributors all stock their own stuff, and then they go to you either for overflow or to expand their available product line to their customers. Is that fair?
That is fair. I think we'll talk a little bit later about sort of where all this is going. I would say when I got into distribution, inventory was sort of the ante to be in the game. I would say inventory is taking a bit of a back seat for the distributor. It becomes absolutely an essential function of the wholesaler, what we do. But I see more and more distributors starting to pay more attention to things like services and troubleshooting and problem solving, and allowing us to be that link in the supply chain that really attends to the inventory side of the house.
Okay, so this is an interesting question that someone just sent in, Kevin, and this actually got a couple now. It speaks to, or it asks you, I guess, to think about your experience as a leader. What are the top 3 traits that your best formers display daily?
So if I could give a fourth, I would appreciate that. We are laser focused on flooding the company with people that exhibit 4 characteristics, things that I don't think we can teach, but we can sure unleash if it's part of who they are. In no particular order, it starts with likability. Very, very important to us because it is a team selling and a team type environment. You want to really like and respect the people that you work alongside. So we only try to bring likable people into the organization. Secondly is tenacity. Right. There are all kinds of challenges that get thrown at you, some of which you walk into, some of which are thrust upon you. But the idea that you live your life and you conduct your business with an idea that tomorrow will in fact be better than today, and that you have an ability to pick yourself up and push forward and move it along, we think is very, very important. And the last 2 are curiosity. The world's changing so fast. We really want to have people in our organization that are challenging me and challenging us and asking lots and lots of questions that are very unsatisfied with, that's the way we've always done it. I think that is how you unlock a lot of your maybe invisible opportunities in the organization. And finally is humility. We have to act and believe that we have to earn our customers' business and trust every single day, and never take any of that for granted. So in my almost 30 years of business, the reason that we're so anchored on those is I've just never seen somebody fail who married hard work with those 4 characteristics. And when I've seen that happen, people have done just absolutely extraordinary things. So that's kind of how we think about the recipe for success.
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of people talk about good interpersonal skills or good team skills, but if you have someone who's both likable and curious, I think you get a good team player.
I totally agree with that. Yeah. And then if you're asking questions, then you're humbly listening to the feedback, you can then do something about it.
Yeah, no, it's great. I've never heard that combination, but I like it a lot. Another question is, well, first of all, how many suppliers do you have?
So we have about 1,000 suppliers, which is sort of the nature of the business, right? Yeah. Our customers expect us to be a full line wholesaler. We have obviously different size and scaled relationships with those, and have some that are hyper strategic. But it is important that we continue to carry a very robust and full line.
And what are the most important characteristics you look for in a supplier partner, Kevin?
So it has to be trust. It has to be an understanding of what roles people should play to be successful in the supply chain. I think there's been a tendency over the last decade or so for lines to get blurred, and we're on a pretty ardent mission to unblur some of those lines and have people recognize that the best teams each have a role to play. We're very comfortable in our skin and understand that. So our best suppliers, our most strategic suppliers, also understand where they excel, and then do what they do as best as they can, and then hand the baton off to us to take that next step in the supply chain. And as I look and evaluate suppliers, obviously we're looking for people that both appreciate our pure wholesale philosophy and also understand the value we're trying to bring. There's no time or appetite, I think, out there from the end user's perspective to pay for duplicative effort. So we just have to trust each other to attend to business.
Great. We have another question, which is related to supply chain. With the global landscape continuously changing and the myriad geopolitics affecting the supply chain, how do you best educate your distributor customers on mitigating risk in the supply chain?
It's a terrific question. And de-risking situations is really at the core of how we earn our living, right? Supply chain has absolutely thrown a wrench in everybody's plans. Nobody can really forecast like they could. Safety stocks are all over the place. There's more challenges than solutions, I think, over the last, say, 24, 36 months in this area.
Right.
Having said that, we do believe that with communication, with more technology, greater visibility, by having our distributor customers think about our inventory as theirs, not ours, and having some technologically enabled access to that inventory, then all of a sudden they have to worry less about what's on their shelves, but can rely on what's on ours.
Yeah. So in our prep call, Kevin, one of the things we talked about was this whole need for trust, which isn't just something you claim. You have to demonstrate it over a long period of time and in different ways. So can you talk about how trust plays into your relationships up and down the supply chain?
For sure. Pure wholesale is the beginning, and maybe even what it all orbits around for us, right? If we tell our customers that we stand with them, we don't compete with them, that by itself is the door opener to having a high trust relationship. Very, very important. I think the time in the world right now calls for more and more of trust. Coming out of the pandemic, as people got a little bit more isolated and were acting in more independent type activities, you forget how two heads are actually smarter than one, and how if you can trust one another, let your guard down a little bit, believe in other people, it's amazing what folks are able to do when they don't feel like they have to do it all themselves. Very recently, we had a national company event with some suppliers and some customers in the room, plus all of our leaders, and brought in a guy named Stephen M.R. Covey, who wrote a very cool book called The Speed of Trust. Two, maybe three things I might lean on from Stephen's writings that I think apply here. One is you need to have the idea, or remember the idea, that it's no good to be a jerk who gets things done, right? We all know people like that. And it's also no good to be someone that is incredibly pleasant to be around who gets nothing done, right? And so what Stephen would say is that credibility is enhanced when those two things are in balance, that your behaviors and your results are both top-notch. The other thing that he talks about, which I think is really undercalculated, is the tax that comes from mistrust. The wasted time and energy, the wasted dollars that go into back checking and fact checking and double and triple checking other people's work and or intentions, as opposed to extending trust and managing the disappointments that come in life. Things go much, much faster that way. than living in a place of distrust and forcing people to spend much more time and energy before you get to a place where true collaboration can happen. And Stephen writes it very, very well and really says that those that lead with fear don't get things done as quickly or as efficiently as those that lead with trust. And we have embraced that mantra, I think, throughout our organization.
Yes, and I think in my experience, building trust is not just about not lying. It's also about not doing things like exhibiting, passive aggressive behavior or operating with a hidden agenda. I had a call earlier this week, and you could tell one of the people on the phone wasn't telling us the whole story about why he was taking a strong position on something. And we had a very inefficient call. Everybody was frustrated. And I have to think that if we had just known what the real reservation was, we'd have gotten to certainly a better and less frustrating outcome. And I've seen this throughout my career where people just try to be too clever. Don't try to outsmart, just be transparent, be clear. And when you interview people, don't try to trip them up, see how they react, and I don't know why, but people just try to be too clever sometimes.
I think you're right about that, and we as leaders should flag that behavior, and there's just a better way. One of our 6 core values, which we unveiled about 3 years ago, is trust plus empowerment, or maybe even times empowerment. It creates speed, right? And so if you trust people, if you allow them to make the important decisions in your business and not run everything up a flagpole, you just operate faster as a company. And our customers expect us to operate at least on their wavelength, if not even a millisecond faster, because their customers are putting them under serious time constraints.
So let's talk about people, because I know it's another area that you've been focusing on. How did you pick the right people, build the right team, build the right culture?
Still doing it, right?
Sure.
But very, very pleased with the executive team that I've been able to hand select in my first 3 years. Very purposefully, I went out and recruited folks from other distribution backgrounds, some similar, some dissimilar than mine, but we all have distribution in our background, with the idea being that if you understand what the client is dealing with, you might be able to anticipate a little bit about what is important to them. Right. So that's been very, very helpful to us. We also, that's from an executive standpoint, but we also are putting in a lot of effort to recruit some of the next generation into our organization, living at another one of our core values, which is diversity accelerates innovation. Right. And so, Ian, there's something like 150 colleges and universities out there now where young people are either getting a minor or a major in professional selling. This didn't exist when I was going to school. I wish it had. Right. But they're spending 4 years learning and embracing the art and science of what professional selling really is all about. And then, of course, we can, with the help of our suppliers, we can teach these young people some of the products and some of the other value propositions that come with it. But in our particular case, we have selected 2 schools, one in the East and one in the West, that really have a student body population that looks a lot more like America. And so by putting our energy behind these programs and trying to recruit these young people into the business, or really, I should say, into the supply chain, we're very, very excited about how they are going to enter this space and make a big difference. Where trust plays in here is we have co-opted a few of our most important suppliers and a few of our most important customers and are trialing a concept that we call the ecosystem, where rather than having people move around chaotically or unexpectedly, we're actually bringing suppliers, a wholesaler, and distributors to the table at the beginning of these people's career and say, listen, we want you to work for all 3 of our companies before you're 30 years old, doing it on purpose in order to give them experiences that any one company can't deliver for them, but we're trusting one another, company to company to company, to shepherd and look after these investments in people in order to get them in a place to be leaders and problem solvers much earlier in their career than they could have been with only one window into the market. But by getting 3 or 4 windows through 3 or 4 different prisms, I think they're going to see and solve problems that I can't see myself.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, down the board, I mean, first of all, diversity creates strength. It's not a compromise. It's a way of building the best possible team. And I think that applies not only to the people you hire, but the experiences you give them. But we have we got the questions stacking up here. So let me pick off a couple of these here.
Sure.
I had to look up this term. Many companies exhibit whamish, which means, why are you making it so hard?
Yep.
Tendencies in working with customers. Can you speak to how suppliers and customers can work to reduce this problems in industrial distribution?
I sure can. That's actually one of my favorite books over the last many years, right? Why Are You Making It So Hard? Is a great, easy read. I'd recommend it to anybody listening in today. It really is, it shines a light on companies that have a habit, a policy, a procedure, a rhythm in their business that once upon a time probably made some sense.
Right.
But as customer expectations shift, by not revisiting these policies, what ends up happening is what was once a good idea now actually and inadvertently tortures your customers. So I made this required reading in our organization, which was really hand in hand with empowerment to give people in our organization total confidence that there's things I'm sure we do that are not as easy as I would like them to be. So our intentions are to be frictionless. The book was designed to give our folks the courage and confidence to say, hey, Kevin, like this just is not in our customers' best interest. Why are we doing it that way? And we have examples where we had an old procedure that once we shone a light on it, we fixed it within a matter of hours in order to better take care of our customers. But it starts with people having the confidence to speak up and say, well, gee, it just doesn't seem to make sense. And we really applaud those conversations.
Yeah, and that's interesting because it illustrates a few things. One is people have to feel comfortable raising those issues, right? They have to believe that there are no negative repercussions to raising real issues that you need to resolve for customers. And they have to feel empowered to do that. They have to have the curiosity to learn about the problem to begin with, right?
Yep.
And you have to have an organization that's flexible enough to consider the issue and resolve it.
I would add one thing to that, Ian, which is you also need people who understand that if it's in the customer's best interest, it's by definition in the company's best interest, right? So if you start with what matters to them, it's amazing how much better things get for everybody.
Right. Okay. So as we know, and this is a very specific question, but there are a bunch of weather events happening right now around the country. I'm sure that's affecting ORS like everybody else. How are you handling it?
Yes. So we're well positioned for what I would call kind of emergency response or disaster recovery by having the footprint that we have and by having the inventory commitments that we have. If the Northeast is getting clobbered with an event, or if the Southeast has a hurricane coming, our ability to move very, very quickly to serve that region from the next nearest distribution center, we think is a little bit of a contingency plan and security blanket that we're blessed to have. Unfortunately, it seems like we have to deal with those more and more often lately. And so looking forward for the weather to get behind us and we can have some smoother sailing there. But as things do come up, we do have secondary and tertiary service situations lined up. So if the primary location is iced or snowed in, we have a plan to service the marketplace.
Yeah, and that's an important backup actually when disasters happen, right? I mean, you can play that role of flooding inventory that's not available to a local distributor into a market that needs help.
That's right.
Yeah. Now there are efficiencies involved with being in your role in the marketplace. And I remember years ago when I was at Grainger, we all read Lou Stern's book on marketing channels, right? And he talked about the value-added functions of a wholesaler distributor. In a lot of ways, you really represent that, right? So it's the break bulk and assortment convenience, combining different products on the same order and providing geographic coverage, et cetera. So there are efficiencies that you produce for suppliers and your customers. Can you summarize those for me?
Sure. I mean, we endeavor, our mission in the business is to create frictionless, high value relationships in both directions.
Yeah.
Right. Very important in terms of where we sit in the supply chain. But I even think about it in a more advanced way in terms of the future state of efficiencies, whether it's through NEW or even inside closer to home with our industry. I'm talking to a lot of other like-minded companies where if you trust one another, we can pool resources from a people perspective. There's some seasonality that some wholesalers and distributors deal with. We might be able to either help ramp up or ramp down those situations by having people that work seamlessly, not just in our building, but maybe in a customer or supplier's building. We all have warehouses and buildings that we operate. None of them are fully utilized, right? And so leaning on one another to get better capacity utilization, we think is another way of being more efficient in the future. And then another one, most people's second biggest cost is freight and transportation. And so the idea that we're all moving things and paying for the air that we're shipping by being more thoughtful and co-opting other people around the table in order to get better utilization of fleets and of truck movements in order to be sure that everybody's a little bit more efficient and cost effective tomorrow than they are today, we think is in the long-term best interests of the whole supply chain.
Okay. Now, a lot of distributors are, double and triple sourcing now, and there's inflationary concerns. How do you handle things like rebates and contract prices for larger opportunities? In general and in this environment?
Yeah. Thanks for asking. I say nearly every day in our organization, no matter how blessed we are to scale and grow, we want to act smaller as a business.
Yeah.
We think that appeals to our customers because they tend to be localized businesses as well. Right. So we want to meet them on that highway. And so you can't say that you're a flexible entrepreneurial business and not say, we will invite every single one of those conversations. It's very important to me that you don't read across and read down. And that's the one and only way that we want to transact with the marketplace. Right. And so we like having those customized one-on-one conversations with our client and come up with a solution that is unique to them that addresses what their interests are.
Okay.
So things like rebates and contracts, we're always having conversations, but we want to customize them as opposed to slide the one thing that we have across the table and ask somebody to merge on our highway.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not the kind of thing with the number of customers and suppliers you have where you can do a policy per se, right? I mean,
that's correct. We have 15,000 or so active distributor customers, right? And so we have about 15,000 variations on a theme, which is great.
Yeah, right. But it's hard to manage. Let's start pivoting a little bit to talk about the future. You have an outside sales force, right? We
do. Yep. And an inside sales force and a customer care group as well. So 3 different ways of trying to look after the client.
And how are those roles evolving, Kevin?
Yeah, I would say they are merging.
Okay.
If there were firewalls between these, sort of when I had my commercial roles,
right,
I would say that the most effective sellers of the future are going to be equally capable and equally as effective, whether they're talking on the telephone or texting or on Zoom or face-to-face. I would say a few years ago, we all thought these were unicorns. I think it's really the way that professional sales is going to look in the future, and have a very broadly defined, call it problem-solving role commercial role and you just communicate the way that the customer likes to be communicated with. You don't waste anybody's time, and you use all the different communication tools and techniques in order to be able to get down to business as quickly as possible. But we are always looking for people that are equally effective communicating in at least those three ways, and whatever else emerges technologically over the next few years, and ask them to be able to use all of that at their disposal in order to build these high trust relationships with customers, in order to be accessible and available to solve their problems, and maybe even someday anticipate them before they even become problems.
Okay, got it. So it's interesting. You think they're merging, so the requirements to succeed in all three roles are becoming more similar?
I think the bar, I guess you could think of it that way. I'm thinking it from really a communication standpoint. Yeah, you have people, oh, well, you've got a personality for outside sales, or
yeah, right.
You've got a radio voice, right? These I think are not where the sales profession is going, and I think the best, most effective salespeople of the future are going to be to communicate the way that the customer wants to communicate, as opposed to maybe what some of their natural gifts might lend themselves to.
Got it. Okay, and let's start talking about the future of wholesale. So trends that we're seeing, I don't know if they're going to continue, probably to some degree, but we see suppliers selling direct in some cases, or they're selling on marketplaces. We hear a lot about Amazon Business. Of course, even if it is $40 billion or bigger, like some people think, Amazon's so large, they don't have to disclose the performance of that business unit. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
Yeah. And so we don't really know how big Amazon Business is. You've got, the Zorro marketplace, and Office Depot just split into two, and one half of it's a marketplace. And so we've got new technologies that are emerging. There's Chat GPT, which you can imagine as voice ordering on the front end of a transaction. It's kind of hard to keep up with all of it, and I do it for a living, right? So as a person who's in the middle of all these relationships, all these distributors, all these suppliers, what do you make of this, and how is the industry transforming right now? What are the dynamics that you're seeing, and where's it going?
Yep. I wouldn't have accepted the role 3 years ago if I wasn't very bullish on what wholesale can do for everybody in the supply chain. Right. And I'm a distributor at heart. I love distribution. And I believe that distribution is only going to grow. I actually also believe that the catalyst that wholesale will become even a bigger part of that future recipe. The way I kind of think about this, Ian, is as a lifelong distributor, if I had one last dollar to invest, in the early part of my career, I think I was predisposed to saying, well, let me go put some more inventory on my shelf. That's where I was going to spend my last buck. I no longer think that that's the right answer. Today, if I'm a distributor and I've got one last dollar to invest, I would lean on our inventory investment. I would act as if our products are basically theirs. And I would spend that dollar on one of two things. I would either spend it on technology in order to be faster for my end use customers, or I would continue to spend it on people that solve problems. I still believe that relationships matter. We've been talking about trust all afternoon. Trust is a thing between people, right? And I think that as more and more folks are looking to have someone dive in with them, alongside them, solve their problems, anticipate their needs, I think this is where the future is, and everybody has a limit on the amount of investment that they can make. And so I think one of the reasons that we can play bigger in the future and maybe compete very, very capably with some of the companies that you mentioned is by being sure that we play in our lane very well. We understand our role, and we enable the distributor to reinvest those dollars in something that's going to be a little bit more growth oriented.
Yeah, it's interesting because we do hear a lot about, how distributors need to get closer to their customers. They need to differentiate with services. You can't just differentiate with product and availability anymore. That's table stakes. It's not the differentiator, right?
I agree with that.
Right. So the need to take the focus off of, well, you always have to be good at managing working capital, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, although relying on you can help them do that.
Right.
But spending your time figuring out how you get into a customer in a way that a competitor can't match, even a big competitor.
With a partner that you never have to worry about that
Right.
hard work getting flushed down the drain because there's competitive forces at play.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm actually bullish on distribution too, and on wholesale. I think it's always played a strong role in the American economy. And I remember I talked about Lou Stern's book later, and he talked about those value-added functions of a wholesale distributor. And he said, look, someone has to do that stuff in the channel. So you either have a wholesaler or a distributor do it, or the manufacturer is going to have to do it, or the end user is going to do it, and they're not good at it.
Right. Well, that's part of the unblurring of the lines, which I think can only happen through trust. If you can trust your supply chain partner to attend to their business, it allows you to attend to yours. If you mistrust their ability or commitment to do so, you end up having to do some of their job for them. And then that ends up just being duplicative and wasteful.
So what's next for ORS, Kevin?
Yeah, we continue to spend a lot of money developing the great people that we already have, a lot of skills training in order to make them more equipped to delight our customers in the future. That's a lot of fun. I get personally involved in a lot of those programs because it kind of fuels me as well. And then we are interested in investing in our business, whether that is geographic expansion, acquisition, or other ways to grow and scale the company. We expect of ourselves to double, if not triple, our company over the next period of time. But as I said, as we get bigger, we want to continue to act smaller.
Get bigger, act smaller. That's great. I love it. Okay. Boy, this has been a great discussion, Kevin. If you want to hang on just a second, let me, I'll ask the audience too as well. I just want to tell you about a couple of upcoming events we have. On March 28th, our good friend, Alex Chalsofsky, who's very well known in the industry, does a lot of keynotes and is a brilliant person with data, is going to talk about how to harness data for better decision-making. I previewed his slides yesterday. They're fantastic. That show will be brought to you by Epicor. So please join us March 28th at noon Eastern. And then on April 5th, we have our episode of Wholesale Change. We have a mystery guest, and this person is such a mystery, we don't know who it is ourselves because we had someone reschedule. But it'll be a great show, of course, but I hope it can stand up to this one, Kevin, because it was really delightful talking to you.
Ian, thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. It's fun to talk about this. And we all should be very, very optimistic about the future.
Yeah, I agree. It's very exciting. Distributors and wholesalers are great places to work. We talked about this before the call. A lot of them operate like family companies, or they feel like family companies. So we got a great story to tell. And thank you for coming on the show today to help us tell it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, everyone. Take care. We'll see you soon. Thanks for attending or joining us on Wholesale Change. Bye now.
Bye-bye.